Northern Colorado in the midst of a run that will see them play back-to-back ball games on the road. This weekend, UNC will travel to UC Davis, having dropped a 49-31 decision at Eastern Washington this past Saturday afternoon. It was a high-scoring affair that saw the Bears lead at halftime 17-14 before Eastern Washington was able to get going offensively, specifically in the second half en route to the victory. Coach, as you take a look back at that ball game, it was really what we semi-expected, and that is that Eastern Washington would make its adjustments that it has done all season long in the second half and be able to find a way to get some things going. Your defense played very well against Cooper Kupp, but there were other options that unfortunately Eastern was able to exploit.
Yeah, I mean, they got several options there, and, we're making sure that, we wasn't going to just get beat down by Cooper again, like we did last year. But when you have a football team like that, it's about athletes. They spread us out in the second half. They came out empty, and it was, your athlete versus my athlete. And, just to put it quite bluntly, the third quarter in the second half, they came out, and, that team is where we're trying to get our team to be. They have, some players right now that are more developed than our guys. We got skilled guys that have the same skill set. It's just they've took that talent level. They've took that talent and made their skill sets a little better than ours are right now.
And, in fact, the comment that I made in postgame was that they just had too much horsepower. Yeah,
I mean, he's got it everywhere you go. He went from Cooper to the number one. He's the one that had the day on us. We left him singled up, and he made some plays. And so it was kind of one of those deals, man, where until we get our athletes developed, like theirs, and we got some issues there. But we're working on it. It's a work in progress, and it was just a good old-fashioned butt kicking in the second half. And you take those and you learn from them. You show your kids where we need to be, where we got to go in order to get to that level of football.
Something that you mentioned in postgame that I wanted to touch on was that one of the things that had your attention was that guys were maybe blaming the other unit, that if the offense was struggling, the defensive guys were grumbling. If the defense was struggling, the offensive guys were grumbling. How much of that did you really have, and has that already been addressed?
No, that was misinterpreted in the sense of it wasn't offense versus defense grumbling. It was cats going at it with each other on the same side of the ball, and so. But I took that as, and we addressed it, and I took that as the guys are wanting to win so bad. They can taste, how close we are to being a good football team. Means knowing they're going back and forth at each other about who's on the field, who's not on the field, this, that, and the other. And so it was great for us to address that at that point in time. And I addressed it right there on the football field, right before we went in the locker room. That's why I got them together out there, because I could see all their faces. They all could see mine, because the locker room constraints there was kind of broken up. And so I did it right out on the field, right there, to get it out in the air, get it out in the open, get it addressed, and move on from there.
It's always one of those fine lines that you have to walk, because in practices, you want those guys to be competitive against each other. Mm-hmm. You want the offense to be competitive with the defense and the other way around.
Right.
But you've got to also make sure that while they're competitive, that they're still cognizant of the fact that they're teammates.
Right. And if it would have been a offense versus defense thing, I'd have been worried about that. But it wasn't that. It was them going at each other on the same sides of the ball. And I just looked at it as competitive nature. Hey, you need to do this, and hey, you need to do this. And so we come together, we look at the film to see what the problems were. Were you out of a gap? Were you not in the right place in the coverage? Those types of things, those are easy fixes, especially when you're getting on each other as peer pressure. It's not about an offense-defense thing.
One of the things that I took away from Saturday's ball game was that when you did get down, that guys still had that drive to make sure that they battled back. Case in point, Eastern Washington takes its first lead of the day. You come back with a very good drive to go back on top at 28-21.
Yeah, I mean, there's no quitting this team. I mean, it's not like in the past where, something happened and just you roll over and die. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep fighting. It's just about the development, of our athletes. It's about overcoming some unfortunate things that we've had to deal with this year. Not an excuse. It's the fact. We have to overcome, some of those guys that we're missing, overcome some of the youth in the secondary, and we got to put more pressure on quarterbacks, and that's just the bottom line.
Speaking of pressure on quarterbacks, Eastern Washington did a good job of getting pressure on Kyle Sloter, especially in the second half. The fourth quarter comes to mind. That last drive, unfortunately for you, was just an ugly drive in the fact that he really had no time to throw the ball.
Yeah, I mean, and those are things, like I said, we come back and you look at the film and it's a step here and a step there, just getting him where he can be comfortable, understanding that the protection is there. You don't have to move out of this spot. They got you covered. And so it's, like I said, it's a growing process. It's really, only his second full start in college. He's a senior. And so you think the senior is being a veteran and understanding all this, but this is his second start under probably his fourth different offensive coordinator in his career.
Question for you in regards to his health. It looked like late in the ball game that he might have been dinged up a little bit. How's his health?
Oh, he's a tough kid. He was out there slinging it around this morning, so he's fine. He's got a little pad on his elbow, and they always wear them things on their sleeves on their arm anyway, so just added to what he had to take the swag one off and put a real one on now. But he's fine. He's out there slinging the ball around, having a good time.
What about Trey Reek? He left the game early because of a hand or arm injury and did not return.
Yeah, I mean, Trey will be down this week, but it's nothing that's going to keep him out for an extended period of time. I don't know if he'll go this week or not. I doubt that he will, but Brandon Carter Jr. is running the ball, like he's never ran it before. And then we got AD back healthy, and Darius is there, so we'll be fine.
How much did it take for you to have to pull Trey from the game? Because I know how much of a guy he is, tough-nosed guy that he is, that wants to keep playing no matter what the situation.
Yeah, I mean, some guys you got to protect them from themselves, So I do that occasionally, especially if I know the temperament of a young man, that he's not going to pull himself out and, he has a chance of hurting himself further, even if June clears him. Sometimes I'll just get him out of there.
What about health-wise? Anybody else of note going into this weekend?
No, just your normal, bumps and bruises and, guys nursing ankle injuries and things like that. But nothing, outside of trade is going to keep somebody out from this weekend.
The Bears headed for UC Davis this weekend, a matchup with the Aggies that kicks off at 5:05 Mountain Time Saturday evening. We'll have coverage at 4:05 beginning on 1310 KFKA that afternoon. The Aggies come in looking for their first conference victory. They've only got one W thus far this season as they sit at 1-5 overall. We'll have much more with Coach coming up. In fact, I want to touch on something that we started to discuss a little last week in regards to morning practices, and that is the effect on the GPA. We haven't touched on where this program is in terms of its grade point average and academics here over a while. That's going to be one of our topics coming up as we continue. On the Earnest Collins Jr. Show, we're live at Stuffed Burger Bar in downtown Greeley on 1310 KFKA.
Do you choose the path that is well-traveled? Or do you choose a landscape that opens up a whole new world of choices, experiences, and opportunities? A journey where you discover, laugh, reach, grow, celebrate. A landscape without limits, a shared journey, an adventure for life. This is the University of Northern Colorado.
Football fans, time to return to your blue and gold roots. Northern Colorado football is set to host Sacramento State on Saturday, October 22nd at 1 p.m. as we celebrate homecoming in Greeley. Join us for Fan Fest beginning at 9 a.m. for some of the best tailgating around. The first 1,500 fans through the door will receive stocking caps from Bank of Colorado, and one lucky fan will get the chance to win an Evo 50 scooter valued at over $1,000. Tickets are going fast, so call 970-351-4849 or visit uncbears.com and reserve your tickets today.
Continuing at Stuffed Burger Bar, the Earnest Collins Jr. Show on 1310 KFKA. Troy Coverdale back with Northern Colorado's head football coach. UNC currently among the teams in fourth place in the Big Sky Conference, sitting now at 1-1 after the loss at Eastern Washington in conference play. 3-2 overall. And, Coach, I will touch on the GPA and the academic side of things in the next segment, but let's talk a little about just what the process of your practices is, because I think people may not have a handle on really how much activity you've got going in terms of a limited amount of time, spot to spot to spot. Talk a little about how you've set up your process in terms of practices each day.
Well, we usually go about 25 periods, in practice, and we give them 1 minute to get from one spot to another spot. And, you're talking about changing from whether you're going to individual drills to teamwork drills or to a 9-on-7 drill or 7-on-7 drill. We don't give them a whole lot of time to be standing around. So it's about moving and going and getting all that you can get in that 2 hours and 10 minutes that you got, 2 hours and 15 minute time slot you have.
25 periods, so even that is a limited range in terms of just the amount of time that you spend in certain aspects of what you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, you got individual drills. You might have that for about 30 minutes a day, and then you go to 9-on-7 and might have that for 10 or 15 minutes, and, you know, a 15-minute 7-on-7 period, and you got a couple special teams periods total. You spend a special teams about 15 minutes. Break that up a 10-minute session and a 5-minute session. And then your scout team where you're working on the other team stuff. You got that, you know, probably for about, 30, 40 minutes a day. And, you know, we're working some good stuff in there as well. But it's still about getting it in, getting it done fast.
When you developed how you wanted to approach practices, how much did you lean on other coaches?
Oh, it's from previous experiences. I mean, but most places are set up like that. You're going to have an indie time, a 9-on-7 time, a 7-on-7 time, special teams, and then teamwork. It's just about how we have it split up. We split up some people have the whole team, the whole 30 or 40 minutes that you have all at one time. You know, if we break that up, you know, just to give the kids a blow, get special teams right in the middle of it, and then come back and start up the team stuff again. So we split it up strategically on purpose, and during fall camp there's a break in there somewhere, but we don't have no heat right now, so we don't need a break in the 25 minute. I mean, in the 25 periods that we have now.
When you take a look at how you've structured that, how much do you change that from practice to practice, or from even say fall now to spring drills?
You know, fall camp we go a little longer because we don't have the 20-hour rule.
Sure.
In fall camp, so we'll go a little longer in fall camp. But from week to week, the time constraints won't change. The time is what it is. We may go longer in individuals or shorter in individual, depending on if we need more team time, or if we need more 7-on-7 time, or we need more individuals. Now we may tweak that a little bit. For the most part, the schedule is what it is. We just may push some things around. For instance, we used to have our team pass drills earlier in practice, where we wanted to get some good on good toward the end of practice, you know, when they're a little tired. So we moved that to we're going good on good at the end of practice so they can ramp it back up again, you know, type of deal. They're not in a teach mode at the end of practice. We're at a let's go mode in the end of practice. So
You brought up scout team and the amount of time that you operate against scout team, and I think that that's always an understated portion of what is going on with your program week in and week out. In fact, I had a question today from a friend about a player who's on the roster, and I noted that they're getting work at scout team, and that it's not a matter of losing ground in terms of their abilities or their capabilities to learn when they're not fully going with your number one or number two guys. They're the ones that are counted on to have to learn so many other things,
right,
because they're the ones that are counted on to basically be your opponent in practice each week.
Right. You know, I always look at the scout team because I did it my first year in college. And so I always look at the scout team as a time for those guys to really, truly work on their fundamentals. I mean, you got to do what the card says, but all the fundamentals you work on individual, they're working on those as well. And so you take that to your scout team, and, okay, it might not be the same scheme. It may not be the same formations or whatever that you're running on our defense or our offense, but the fundamentals are the same. And so you're getting a chance as a scout team guy to go up against the number one offense and number one defense every day. So that is your chance to show the coaches what you can do, And so we've had guys come straight from the scout team straight to starting, and so it can help you in that sense if you're taking it serious. I mean, I'll give you an example. Noah Soul, he's a wide receiver for us, freshman kid. Anytime we got to go to wide out, we put him in that jersey number because we know we're going to get everything out of him we can get, and he goes up after the ball. He runs great routes. And so, you look at that kid and say, if we wasn't so deep at that position, he might be playing for us this year. So next year, Stephen Miller's gone. He's going to step in, and he's going to be a key part of what we're trying to do because of what he's showing us on the scout team right now this year.
The scout team as well has to do an awful lot of work in terms of learning the opponents, as I noted a moment ago, and that means that changes week to week to week, that they're getting a heavy dose of learning another offense, learning another defense each week. And while the techniques are what you want them to be, just the fact that they have to learn so much over the course of the season, as opposed to just being used to your normal looks, week in and week out really poses a challenge as well.
Yeah, and what we try to do, it's not so much the learning piece, but because we try to cater whatever the formation is, we try to call the formation the same thing that the offense calls it. Whatever the defense is, if it's similar, we'll call it the same thing that we call it on defense. Because the learning part is, look at this card and do exactly what this card says. So it shouldn't be that hard for you to understand what that card says. And so that's why the emphasis is on the fundamentals. Your footwork ought to be the same. Your alignment ought to be the same. Your routes ought to be crisp. If you look at that card and it says run this 15-yard route, well, what route in our book goes at 15 yards? You got to get a good top of the route, get out your break, those types of things. And so, like I said, when you focus on the fundamental part of it, whatever that card tells you to do, that's how you get better as a player. Because most guys come to college, they get a scholarship or they get on a college football team based on their talent. Your talent is not what makes you a great player in college. Everybody has talent for the most part when you get to college. It's about your skill set. How willing are you to perfect your craft, to be the best at what you do? And that involves the skill set amping up a bit.
Having been a scout team member your first year in college, what do you tell the guys when you point out, listen, I know you'd like to be on this roster and going on road trips specifically, being on the travel roster and being able to contribute more, but I need you here. How do you play that with them?
I take it twofold. I take it as, you're getting a chance to go up against the starters every day, and it's about development. And so we're trying to get you developed. And so it's about taking that and using it for what it is, because fall camp, you didn't get to go against the starters that much because you were going against the threes and the fours. Well, now you get to do that every day. And so that's your chance to show us on film. When we're voting on Scout Team Player of the Week, it's like, okay, well, this dude keeps showing up over and over again. The other part of that is, I always tell them like this: the Scout Team gives you an extra year to get ready to play football. And I would say, if you could go back right now and play a fifth-year high school football, how dominant would you be in high school? And I would look at me like, well, I would eat it up, Coach. Well, you take that and put it into the college sense. You got a whole year of lifting 4 days a week, 5 days a week. Now, by the time your senior year comes, when you're Stephen Miller and you've been here for 5 years, or you're a Thomas Singh and you've been here for 5 years, now you can be dominant at what you do. And it gives you the fifth year to get your education paid for.
And it also brings up the point that you really do try to redshirt as many as the freshmen as you can to ensure that they get that fifth year.
I try to. If there's a question of whether he's going to get a hold of, because Noah was, speaking of, he was going to travel with us this year, but he was not in that rotation, and so I didn't want to bring him and just throw him in there for a play or two and then blow his red shirt. And so it is important to me, because if a kid can help us win games now, we're going to use him as a freshman. But if he still needs some development, there's still some things with the depth chart is going to keep him from, getting on the field, I'd rather just save that year, get him that fifth year paid for, whether I'm paying for it or he's paying for it. But at least now you might get a master's degree like Thomas Singleton. Thomas Singleton graduated in December of 15. And so now when he finishes in December, or he probably had a master's degree when he finishes.
And that's a big part of it as well, as it gives the opportunity for guys to structure their academics in such a way that they can look at graduate school, look at another opportunity.
No question, because that's really the ultimate goal, because 99.9% of them won't ever see a professional football field. And so while you're having fun, you're playing college ball, you better use it and don't let it always use you.
Again, the Bears this weekend on the road at UC Davis, now 3-2 overall, 1-1 in Big Sky Conference action, sitting in fourth place. After this weekend, homecoming looms as the Bears will welcome in Sacramento State on the 22nd and then go back out on the road to close out the month of October at Portland State. You can, of course, find much more on tickets and the schedule online at uncbears.com.
Homecoming is my wife's birthday, too, so we got to win that one.
Oh, look at that. Points early. Nice job.
Got to get them in when you can.
We'll be back with more with Coach in a moment. This is the Earnest Collins Jr. Show, live from Stuffed Burger Bar on 1310 KFKA. Continuing live from Stuffed Burger Bar in downtown Greeley, Troy Coverdale back with Northern Colorado head football coach Earnest Collins Jr. The Bears headed for UC Davis this week. It will be a 5:05 kickoff. 4:05 begins blue and gold game day coverage. Aaron Rath and I will have the call for you on Saturday here on 1310 KFKA. I wanted to touch on academics, and part of the reason why I wanted to touch on that was because you brought up last week, as we talked about moving practices to the morning, the effect that has had during spring drills, especially on your team's GPA, and that you wanted to get it in a position so that this fall, for example, you'd be able to take advantage of that and be able to work towards improving that GPA for that semester as well. Talk about what your base level is, what you want to see out of your guys academically, and we'll go from there.
Well, when I first got here, we set a goal to have a cumulative GPA at a 2.8, for all 100 guys. And so my thought process with that is if we can get to the 2.8 mark, then I know I have more over 3.0 than I do under, So it's always in the fall. Like I said, when we talked about last when we got here, it was about a 2.4, 2.5 right off in there. And, we always fluctuate around 2.68, 2.7 in the fall, somewhere in that 2.6 mark, 2.7 mark. And then in the spring, these last two springs, we've jumped it up to a 2.86 and a 2.89 or something like that. And so I contributed that to, we've shifted the practices to the morning. So now, there's less partying and there's no missed class because they're already up. Because, you can party still, but you ain't going to do a whole lot of partying when you got to be at Butler Hancock at 5 o'clock in the morning, So it's just kind of one of those focus things, for me. And like I said, my number one purpose, my number one goal for our players, not just to make them better football players, but to make them better going than when they came as young men. And that's a part of it, is getting their degree in their hand.
And it's a very important part that I think in a lot of ways folks tend to overlook outside of the program, because they consider the wins and losses, but they don't think about all the time exactly what goes into trying to, number one, keep a kid eligible and being able to have them on the football team so that you can win ball games with them.
And I think it really goes hand in hand, for me at least. I think the better you get off the field education-wise and understand, get them locked in to understand how important that is, then they understand the education of football. They understand that they got to get in their playbook. They got to study it as well to become a better athlete. So it goes hand in hand for me. And like I said, if when they come tell me, Coach, we don't, which no one would blatantly say that, but when if the hints were ever to come, like it has in certain programs, listen, we just want you to win ball games. All this education stuff, then I got to go do something else because I'm not doing what I'm really supposed to be doing, and that's getting young men better on and off the field.
How important was it to you when you took this job that the academic portion be where it needs to be for you to feel that you have built this program into a success?
Oh, any job that I ever take, whether I'm the head coach or the assistant coach, it's the same thing for me. Right now I just happen to be in control of the whole team, so I can structure practices, change up the practice plans and all that stuff to cater to that. But when I was an assistant coach, I did the exact same thing. I had guys that wanted to switch from offense to defense, and I'm like, not with those grades. You can't come play for me like that. And so I've always had that mindset because that's how my mom was with me. Like I said, she made me quit doing everything in the spring of my sophomore year because I brought home 3 C's on my report card. So I learned at an early age, if you don't get good grades, you don't do anything else.
I still have those dreams about coming home with a bad grade. They still get me every once in a while. I'm like, wait a minute, what did I miss? What did I forget? So 2.9 is where you set that goal for spring. Mm-hmm. And your guys, I know, were over 2.8 this past spring.
2.89 this past spring.
So 2.9 remains the goal this coming spring.
Well, you bump it up because you never stay the same. We reached the goal at 2.8. Now you got to take it up a level. And really what we're aiming for is to get that cumulative at a 3.0 right now, because now you're going into a different category. So our cumulative GPA at the end of the summer, I think, was at a 2.86 or something like that overall. We reached with the summer, if you go to summer and the spring combined, we were at a 295 after summer grades came out. And so now the goal is to see how this thing works for us in the fall, which I think is better for the coaches also to have morning practice, because now they can get home to their families before the kids go to bed at night and all that type of stuff as well. So it's kind of better overall all the way around.
As this academic side of it has developed and strengthened, what has been the biggest thing that you have noticed with your players in terms of how that has improved?
I just think they're more locked in. It's when you're forcing them to get their studies off the field, then it just carries over, because we have more guys, like Monday's their day off. And so they come in, they get their study hall, they get their work done, and then half of them come straight from there over to the football offices, posted up in one of the coaches' offices while we're down in the conference rooms, going over tape, looking at film. They're doing the same thing on their own. Then they up there all day, every day, when Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We get them for 20 hours. They probably spend another 10, 15 hours themselves, cooped up in somebody's office or watching it on the Galaxy that they can stream it to. And so I think it just carries over, because they know how important the studying aspect is with the GPAs, with their getting their schoolwork done, and it's just carrying over to the football field as well.
One of the things that took place during the renovation of Butler Hancock was the addition of placing the Academic Success Center in the heart of the athletic department facilities. And that has played such a tremendous role for all of the programs, I know. And Jimmy Henderson does a tremendous job, plus his entire staff is just stellar.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you got Jimmy Henderson, Jimmy Crossrow, Laney, all those folks in there. They do a great job with our guys, making sure they're monitoring. And it's not sitting in there. That's the thing. If you're going to have a study hall, you don't want it to just be a room where they go and they gather and they're sitting there watching Netflix or something. You want them to actually go get something done. So we have weekly meetings where they got to talk about progress reports. They got to show the plan for the week. What are you trying to get done this week? And they also can get tutors over there too. So our Academic Success Center is pretty good.
It really played out as a great placement for that as well, being able to put it right there in the heart, because that means the coaches are walking by there as well.
Yeah, it's about 50 steps from my office, so it's pretty cool. I can just walk around there and see who's in. But we got a monitoring system. They got to check in and put their bear number in so we know who's in, who's out. I get a report every week how many hours they got, if they got their hours or they didn't. And if they didn't, then we got a few reminders that we do to make sure they get them next week.
What do you get for notes that say, hey, this person needs that little extra boost, needs that added help from the Student Support Services area?
As far as from them,
yes.
From us, I mean, every once in a while you can just bring them in and kind of talk to them and get them going that way. And then sometimes you have to remind them other ways, So Jeff Butler does a good job for us with that.
When do you get that indication that maybe there's that added help needed?
If it's continuing, I'll kind of give them the benefit of the doubt at the beginning of the semester. But if it continues to happen, then we just introduce them to Coach Butler a little bit better, and then they get to know him a little better.
Nothing like working the academic side as well.
Definitely.
You have to drive them almost as hard as you do on the football field, or harder?
Sometimes. Sometimes you do. Most of our guys are pretty good, though. Most of them understand what they're here for, and they go get it done. But there's that select few. You got about that 10 or 15 guys that you got to kind of push a little bit to get it going. But once they understand it, they understand the importance of it. By the time they get to that sophomore, junior, senior year, they're in cruise mode. They understand what's expected of them.
Is there one or two players that you've had in the program to date that you take a look at and point at them as an example for someone who is working to get that academic side together?
For me, it was when I was assistant here under K. And Mod Lowe, and he was the one I was talking about. He was that kid that he did just enough to stay eligible. In the fall, he'd come out with a 1.8 or something, and then in the spring, he'd get to a 2.2 so he could stay at a 2.0. He had it down. And he wanted to move from receiver to DB, and I just told him, I said, dude, you're not going to come play for me with that. And he said, well, Coach, what do I have to do? And I went straight to his grades. And long story short, his first semester, back then we didn't have the monitoring that we have now. I made him get a piece of paper, and his professor signed him in the class and out. He got a 2.7 his first semester doing it, and then he got a 3.3, and then he didn't want to stop doing it. And I got an invitation in the mail when I left to go to Kansas that he was graduating a semester early. He still had a year to play. He was graduating in May, and his mom sent me an invitation. And to me, that that's a big success story for me that I've had in my career outside of all the championships or national championships or whatever. Is that kid understanding that I am smart. I don't have to be a 1.8 student, a 2.2 student. I can be a 2.7, 3.3 guy and get my degree early and go and get a master's.
Trying to game the system doesn't help in the future.
Not at all. Not at all. And all he just learned a lesson. If I put my mind to it, I can do anything I need to do.
Again, the Bears this weekend back on the road as they travel to UC Davis for another conference affair. Sitting at 1-1, the Bears currently in 4th place in the conference amidst a group of teams sitting there. There are just 2 teams that are left unbeaten in conference play heading into this weekend's action. We'll preview the matchup with UC Davis when we come back in a moment. This is the Earnest Collins Jr. Show, live from Stuck Burger Bar in downtown Greeley on 1310 KFKA.
Bears volleyball returns for another duo of home games beginning Thursday, October 13th, when UNC faces the Montana Grizzlies at 7 p.m., brought to you by Pepsi. They'll turn around on Saturday at 7 p.m. versus Montana State, brought to you by Banner Health North Colorado Medical Center. Wear pink as we raise funds and awareness for breast cancer research. For tickets or more information, call 970-351-4849 or visit uncbears.com.
Troy Coverdale back with Northern Colorado head football coach Earnest Collins Jr. as the Bears again head for UC Davis this weekend. The back end of back-to-back road games in conference action. 5:05 kickoff Mountain Time coming up on Saturday evening. UC Davis yet to win in conference play. They've dropped all 3 of their games thus far, 1-5 overall with their only win against the Division II opponent. As someone brought up to me, perfect trap game if you're not aware of what you're going into.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten beat by Ron before, a couple, 2-3 years ago. And, he's going through the growing pains that we went through, in our first few years here. He's got a good offense, got a good defense. They're going to give you all kinds of motions and shifts. He got some big receivers to get the ball to. He's got powerful running back. So we know we're not going down there and playing a 1-5 team. Like I said, any team on any day in this conference is capable of beating anybody. So we understand that we got to go down there and bring our A game to come home with a W.
One of the things that tickled me today was seeing the practice video on YouTube, and it said preparation for the Star Wars defense of UC Davis. Explain what that means.
Oh, they bring you. They're going to give you a multitude of looks from 3 down to 4 down and blitz from the weak side, strong side, up the middle. They're going to give it to you from all over the place. And so you just got to be ready for it to come from all directions.
It is decidedly a different ball club offensively than what you saw last week against Eastern Washington. In fact, they may be as straightforward a running team as you have seen all year.
You know what? They do run the ball more than what we've seen this year, but they're still about 60-30 pass to run. And so it's changed a little bit from what it was in the past, from years past. But he's got some more weapons. He's got a senior quarterback. He's got some big targets to throw the ball to. So they're just kind of playing to what they have and what their strengths are. But he's actually throwing the ball a little more than he has in the past.
As you looked at it in scouting for this week, and you already mentioned that they're not a 1-5 team, where have things gone wrong for them that you hope that they don't get well?
I think part of it is who they've played as well.
Sure.
They played some pretty stout defenses. You talking about Southern Utah last week. They held them to 3 points. Southern Utah plays some really good defense,
right.
So they've just come up against some buzzsaws, and it's kind of like with us. We've went up against probably our 2 most prolific passing teams we have in our conference outside of Idaho State, that throws the ball all over the place. And so it's going to be good, for us to get to a team. Yeah, they throw the ball a lot, but you're going to see some runs in there as well. It's just not throw it. But it's kind of one of those deals, man. Like I said, we went through it. We went through it our first few years here. It's just like you can't catch a break. It's kind of like, for instance, they played Weber. They go down, they get the touchdown, go for 2, tie the game up 35-35, stop Weber. Weber punts the ball back to them, and they fumble the punt, and Weber pounces on it and kicks a field goal to win the game. So they're going through some of those things like we did with the Portland State thing our first year. They're going through them in multiple years, and so we understand that they're looking to get their first conference win and get off that losing streak and and we got to go down and not let them have that.
In fact, just for points of reference for folks, they've also played 2 FBS foes this season in that they opened with Oregon and also played Wyoming. If you look at just what they have done against FCS-level opponents, they lost by 3 to Weber State, as you said, and then had Eastern Washington and Southern Utah back-to-back road games. They led at Eastern Washington like you did at halftime, only to get that second-half blitz that the Eagles tend to put together this year.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles have done that to every opponent that they've played this year except for North Dakota State, so it's one of those deals. So we understand what we're going up against, and, we caught them last year pretty good, and we know they're going to be kind of wanting to avenge that, so to speak. And so our kids, like I said, I heard so many voices in our hallways today. I'm in the office studying film, and we have guys literally in every coach's office watching film up in our coach's office, where our coaches are downstairs in the down the hall in the conference room. So our guys understand the importance when you get into conference play, and you gotta buckle it up week in and week out.
Plus, they also know that they're trying to come back from a loss last week. And what was the approach today when you got them in practice for the first time this week by the guys? How were they looking at things now, having seen the video, seen what went on, and where they can improve?
Yeah, kids, just like your own children, they bounce back way faster than any of us ever do. So they were out there this morning and fired up, and and the thing that's interesting to me is you can tell our kids have gotten to a mode that they understand that now we got to get up and get ready for practice in the morning. So they're out there having a great time during stretch, and music's going, and so they're having a good time before it's time to get down to work and get that. When period 1 starts, they know it's time to go to work, and we get it going.
Something that you just noted, and we've not talked in depth about that, but it's the use of music at practice. When you were a player, that wasn't an occurrence. That wasn't taking place.
No.
Your practices always have music nowadays.
Yeah, it's the day and age. It's kind of what they're motivated by music, and they can multitask, and a lot of times it's just background noise, type of deal. But it's something that gets them going, and the first time I experienced it was at the University of Kansas. Mark used to have it blasting over the loudspeaker. Sometimes when we had to go indoor practice, he'd pull his car up in the indoor and crank the music up, with his SUV. So it was something that the kids enjoyed. The pace of practice seems to pep up, and guys are going and moving and having fun with it, and so it's kind of something that everybody's kind of adapting to now.
Surprised me at the scrimmages. It was a little more classic rock oriented than what I figured it would be for those guys.
Yeah, BC has his days. He'll have Tuesdays this day and Wednesdays this day, and so he kind of mixes it up to give everybody a little taste.
BC controls it all.
Yeah, I let him do it all.
Brandon controls it all. He's not getting anything under the table from the guys.
Now he might be, but he controls it.
Final thoughts. What do you see as keys as we head into this one this weekend?
It's really, and people probably get tired of me saying it, but it truly is the same thing every week. I tell our guys all the time, it's about us. If we execute like we're supposed to, we can play and beat anybody. So it's about the execution on offense and defense and special teams, and understanding, stay together, play together, and you win together.
We'll look forward to the road trip again. A little bit of California time after being up in the Pacific Northwest. I think it's going to be welcome.
Yeah, we got a lot of guys from California, so they're looking forward to it. And I got coaches from there already bugging me about tickets and all that other stuff. So we should have a nice little entourage of UNC Bears at this one.
Sounds good. Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Ernest Collins Jr. again as the Bears head for UC Davis on Saturday. Again, a 5:05 kickoff. 4:05 will begin our coverage with Blue and Gold Game Day. Aaron Rath and I will have it for you here on 1310 KFKA. A reminder that our next Bears broadcast tomorrow night as we bring you UNC Focus presented by Advantage Bank. That is on the way at 5:05 tomorrow evening. We'll be talking a little women's tennis. We'll talk about women's soccer as well. And we will touch base with Athletic Director Darren Dunn. That's all on UNC Focus coming up tomorrow evening at 5:05. Now for studio engineer Micah Kilpatrick, I'm Troy Coverdale. Thanks to the coach as always as well. We'll be back here at Stuffed Burger Bar next week for another edition of the Earnest Collins Jr. Show on Tuesday evening starting at 6:05. Till Saturday, Troy Coverdale, thanks for joining us tonight, and go Bears.